Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. This time we're going behind the scenes to uncover some fascinating facts and trivia from the world of movies.
I'm really looking forward to it. You never know. Sometimes even the smallest detail can completely change how you see a film.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's imagine you're cruising down the street, 88 miles per hour, wind in your hair, and that iconic DeLorean.
Back to the Future, a true classic.
But did you know that that time machine almost wasn't a DeLorean at all?
Really? Now that's something I didn't know. What was it going to be?
Well, the original script actually called for the time machine to be a refrigerator.
A refrigerator. Now that's a wild image. Can you imagine Marty McFly traveling through time in a kitchen appliance?
Yeah, it's pretty out there.
Yeah, that's right.
But the filmmakers ultimately decided against it. It seems like they were worried about kids trying to copy the movie and, potentially locking themselves in fridges.
Yeah, that makes sense. You can't be too careful with these things, but it really makes you think. What would the movie have been like with a refrigerator as the time machine?
Well, it would have been completely different. But, that's just one example of how those seemingly small decisions can have a huge impact on a film. Speaking of unexpected details, I've got another one for you, and this one's about the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock.
Oh, Hitchcock! One of the greats. What's the story?
Well, get this. The man who gave us Psycho, The Birds, all those iconic thrillers, he was absolutely terrified of eggs.
Oh, come on, you're pulling my leg. That can't be right.
I know, right? It's a pretty wild contrast. But yeah, apparently he found them revolting even. Couldn't stand the sight of them.
Wow, that's really something. But I guess even the most brilliant minds have their quirks, right? It makes them seem a little more human, I suppose.
It's true. And it makes you wonder if any of his villains or, even those suspenseful scenes he was so famous for, tapped into that fear in any subtle ways.
Yeah, it really does. And it reminds us that sometimes those little details, those unexpected facts about a person or a film can give us a whole new perspective on their work.
Totally agree. You start seeing things in a different light, don't you? And it's not just about those quirky details. Sometimes it's about the way a director uses the camera, the techniques they employ to tell a story.
Right, like camera angles, lighting, even the editing can completely change how we perceive a scene.
Absolutely. And speaking of using the camera in a powerful way, let's talk about a director who's known for his incredibly distinctive visual style. Have you seen any of Alfonso Cuarón's films, like Gravity or Children of Men?
Oh, absolutely. Cuarón is a master of his craft. He creates such breathtaking visuals, and his use of long takes, those unbroken shots that go on for minutes sometimes, is just incredible.
They really pull you into the moment, don't they? It's like you're right there in the action.
Exactly, and they often serve a very specific purpose in his storytelling. They can heighten the tension or make you feel the passage of time in a really visceral way.
Like in Gravity, when that space debris is hurtling towards the astronauts, that extended shot really puts you right there with them, feeling their panic.
Yeah, that's a great example. Cuarón is a master of using those techniques to make the audience feel like they're part of the story, not just watching it from a distance.
Absolutely. And speaking of feeling part of the story, let's talk about a film that really messes with our sense of time and memory. Memento. The one where the protagonist can only remember things for 5 minutes.
Memento, a classic mind-bender. That film really makes you question the nature of reality and the fragility of our memories.
The first time I saw it, I walked out of the theater and my head was spinning. I was trying to piece together all those fragmented memories, just like the protagonist.
I know exactly what you mean. It's such a unique and thought-provoking film. It makes you think about how much of who we are is tied to our memories, and what happens when those memories are unreliable or incomplete.
That's such a good point. It's like Memento is a metaphor for how we all construct our own personal narratives. Our memories aren't always perfect, and the way we choose to remember things shapes how we see ourselves and the world around us.
It's true. We're all constantly editing and reinterpreting our own pasts, aren't we? And sometimes, like in Memento, the most unreliable narrator is our own memory.
Okay, so we've covered quite a bit of ground already, from a refrigerator that almost traveled through time to the psychological depths of Alfred Hitchcock's fears.
It's amazing what you can learn about movies when you start digging a little deeper, isn't it? There are so many hidden layers and unexpected connections.
Absolutely. And we've still got more to explore.
Yeah, it really is. Like, there's always something new to discover.
Right. And sometimes those discoveries lead us to, unexpected connections. Like that idea about memory, how much it shapes our reality. Makes me think of another director who uses the camera in a really powerful way
Uh-huh.
to kind of explore those same ideas. Have you ever seen any of the films by Christopher Nolan,
Oh, absolutely.
like Inception or Interstellar?
Yeah, Nolan's films are, well, they're really something else. He's a master at bending our perceptions of time and space and reality.
Exactly.
Right.
And he does it all with such visual flair. The special effects and the camera techniques and that non-linear storytelling. It's like he's creating puzzles for our brains to solve.
And the best part is, even when you think you've got it all figured out,
Right.
there's always another layer, another layer of meaning to uncover. It's what makes his films so rewatchable.
Totally. It's like he's inviting us to participate in the storytelling. Become active viewers instead of just passive observers.
Yeah. That's a great way to put it.
Like almost like those choose your own adventure books.
Yeah.
But for movies?
Exactly. And it really speaks to the power of film as a medium. I mean, it can engage us on so many levels,
Right. Our senses, our emotions, even our intellect.
all at once.
Yeah. And speaking of engaging our intellects, let's shift gears for a second.
Okay.
And talk about a film that does just that, but in a completely different way. Have you ever seen the documentary Man on Wire?
Man on Wire? Oh, yes. That's the one about Philippe Petit,
Right.
the French high wire artist who walked between the Twin Towers.
Yeah, in 1974.
Back in 74, right?
That's the one. And it's such a captivating film. It's like you're on the edge of your seat the whole time, even though you know how it ends.
It's true. What's so fascinating about that film? It's how it builds that suspense without relying on those traditional thriller tropes.
Yeah, no jump scares or anything.
No jump scares, no car chases. It's about the sheer audacity of Petit's dream.
Right.
And the meticulous planning that went into, actually making it a reality.
And the way the film uses that archival footage and the interviews and those dramatic recreations.
Yeah.
It's like you're right there with him,
Yeah.
experiencing, his fear and his determination and his ultimate triumph.
It's a great example of, how a documentary can be just as compelling, maybe even more so than a fictional film, because, it's all based on real events.
Yeah, it's a reminder that sometimes reality
Really is.
can be stranger than fiction.
Stranger than fiction.
And that sometimes the most extraordinary stories are the ones that actually happened.
It's true. And it kind of brings us back to that idea we touched on earlier about how even, seemingly small details can have a profound impact on a film.
Right. Whether it's, a refrigerator that almost became a time machine or a director's unique phobia or even just that choice to use a long take to heighten a particular moment.
Yeah.
All those details can really shape our understanding of a film and make it truly memorable.
Absolutely. And as we've seen today, they can spark conversations about creativity and about filmmaking and even about the human experience,
Right. Now, speaking of impactful details,
Okay.
there's one actor whose presence has become synonymous with the whole cinematic universe.
Right.
I'm talking about Samuel L. Jackson
Oh, of course.
and his iconic role as Nick Fury in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, Samuel L. Jackson. He's like the glue that holds the entire MCU together.
Right.
His character, Nick Fury, I mean, he's appeared in more films than any other actor in the franchise.
It's kind of incredible how he manages to tie all those different storylines together.
Yeah, it's really remarkable.
He's like the ultimate connector,
Yes.
the thread that runs through it all.
He is.
And it's not just his screen time, it's his persona, right? That cool, calm demeanor, that authoritative voice. I mean, he brings a sense of gravitas to the role that it's hard to imagine anyone else replicating.
It's true. It really makes you think about how his casting has shaped the MCU as a whole.
Oh, definitely.
He's such a strong presence, and his ability to deliver those signature Nick Fury lines
Yeah.
with just the right amount of, intensity, It's really become a defining element of the franchise.
Totally. Now, let's shift our focus to another cinematic universe.
Okay.
But this time, it's a world created by a single director,
Uh-huh.
a master of world building through the lens of a camera.
All right.
Wes Anderson. Have you seen any of his films?
Oh, Wes Anderson, absolutely.
The Grand Budapest Hotel,
Wow.
Moonrise Kingdom.
Oh, yeah, his films are so instantly recognizable. You can spot a Wes Anderson film a mile away
Right.
with his distinct visual style.
Yeah.
And those quirky characters.
Yeah, and those whimsical storylines.
Oh, absolutely.
He's definitely created a unique aesthetic.
Yeah, he
The
is.
symmetrical compositions and the pastel color palettes. And those characters, they're always a little out of step with the world around them. Like stepping into a meticulously crafted dollhouse.
That's a great way to describe it. And it's not just the visuals. There's a certain tone, a sense of humor that runs through all of his films.
Yeah. It's playful, but also kind of melancholic at the same time.
It is.
Often dealing with the themes of family and loss and that search for connection.
Yeah, it's like he's created his own little corner of the cinematic universe,
Right.
a place where the rules are slightly different and the emotions they're always just below the surface.
Right, and yet even with all that whimsy and all those visual flourishes, there's a real heart to his films.
There is.
His characters, no matter how eccentric, they're ultimately relatable.
They are. They're searching for love and acceptance and their place in the world, just like the rest of us.
Exactly. Okay, before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Right.
About, those unexpected details that can reveal so much about a film and the people who made it.
It's amazing how those, seemingly insignificant bits of trivia can become entry points into deeper conversations about creativity and filmmaking and even the human experience.
Right. It's a reminder that even in something as, seemingly lighthearted as a movie, there's always more to discover, more to learn.
Yeah.
If you're willing to, to look beneath the surface.
It really is. I mean, sometimes the most rewarding discoveries are the ones we make when we dig a little deeper, when we go beyond just the surface and start asking questions.
And speaking of questions, I've got one for you.
Okay.
It's about those little details, those seemingly insignificant facts that often get overlooked. Do you think they can tell us anything about the cultural landscape, the time a film was made?
That's a really interesting question. And I think the answer is yes. I mean, movies aren't created in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
They're products of their time, reflecting the trends and anxieties and even the politics of the era in which they were made.
Yeah, it's like those hidden clues in a historical novel. You paid attention to the details, the costumes, the slang, the social norms depicted. You can learn a lot about the period in which the story takes place.
Exactly. And movies they're no different. Think about the science fiction films of the 1950s.
Okay.
Many of them, they reflect the Cold War anxieties of that era, with their fears of, nuclear annihilation and alien invasion.
It's almost like those films were processing the collective fears of society, but through the lens of science fiction.
Right, and in a way, they were providing a safe space to explore those fears, to confront them in a fictional setting.
Yeah, that's a great point. Makes me think about how horror films often reflect those anxieties of their time as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Like those slasher films of the 1980s with their themes of isolation and vulnerability.
Yeah, and those films, they often tapped into anxieties about social change, economic uncertainty, even the breakdown of, traditional family structures.
It's fascinating to see how those themes play out in different genres and across different decades.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that movies aren't just, they're not just entertainment. They're cultural artifacts, reflecting the hopes and fears and dreams of the people who made them and the audiences who watch them.
Absolutely. And by paying attention to those, seemingly insignificant details, those little cracks in the facade, we can gain a deeper understanding, not only of the films themselves, but also of the world in which they were created.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of movies, I think the key takeaway is this. Don't just watch a movie. Observe it. Pay attention to the details, the things that might seem trivial at first glance.
Because those details, they might just hold the key to unlocking a whole new level of understanding and appreciation.
Right.
And who knows, you might even learn something about yourself and the world around you in the process.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us on this journey, behind the scenes, behind the stories, and behind those silver screen moments we all love.
It's been a pleasure exploring the fascinating world of movies with you. Until next time, keep watching, keep questioning, and keep those popcorn buckets full.